Seen in BC, only TV Week magazine gives you all the listings for the networks, independent stations, local cable stations, the converter channels, and pay TV. Only TV Week has them all. If it's on TV, it's in TV Week magazine. Get next week's issue today.
Your local librarian is no dusty old bookworm. As a chef, she's magnifique. She's a music lover. She's a sports enthusiast. She's a dancing queen. She's a molder of curious young minds. And
Sylvia
she's
Porter.
an authority on foreign cultures. Where does your librarian get this wealth of wisdom? The same place you can. It's at the library. Check it out.
Excuse me.
How can I help you?
You're the Shoppers Drug Mart pharmacist, right? You own this store?
That's right.
I hear you're a very smart person.
Well, I try.
And you always give terrific advice. And so friendly and courteous, so easy to talk to. You need cough medicine? Ask your pharmacist. You need vitamins? Ask your pharmacist. So let me ask you, why are you standing on my toe?
You're gonna be happy.
Happy to help you.
Shoppers Drug Mart. SCTV, we're coming through for you.
Good morning. There's one very pleasant thing about being a member of the House of Commons or a member of the legislature. If you want an increase, you can vote yourself an increase, especially when both the parties in the House decide that it's time for an increase. That's what's happened in the House at Victoria. Everybody got a 7% increase plus this and that and the next thing. Nice little fringes here and there. There is now, of course, considerable confusion. And some of them are going to take the increase, some of them are not going to take the increase. So in the spirit of amity and friendship, I brought in two prominent social creditors this morning who are going to explain their problems to me. One is Angus Ree, who is the social credit MLA for North Van Capilano. And the other is that intrepid John Parks from Millardville, Coquitlam, whom I believe is now the Parliamentary Secretary. That's a brand new nomenclature for BC to the Minister of Health. That's one thing this morning. Also this morning, we must have a look at the BCGEU, which I'm sure is in its own way the perfect union. The BCGEU represents all the people in government service and wants to represent a lot more outside government service. But they have a problem with one Sylvia Porter, a staff rep who has been fired. Now, why was Sylvia Porter fired by a union? Was it because she was trying to get a proper union for herself and others within the BCGEU? We'll find out about that. And then, of course, no program is complete in this province at all unless we have somebody complaining about educational cuts. I have here two members of the Capilano College Faculty Association. Capilano College is looking forward to $1 million cut. I've got Bob Cook and Walter Stewart. But first, the two social creditors, MLAs, who are just waiting, perhaps, to get their hands on their increases while you're worrying if your unemployment insurance check will be there this week, after the break. Personally, I do not understand the confusion that has arisen over these parliamentary increases. First, they were to get 7.6%, and then the parliamentary secretaries were to get $6,000 a year. And then something happened, and they're only to get $3,000 a year. And then Chabot says, the provincial secretary, if you get the checks, don't cash them. If you get a check for more money, Angus, here, you're going to cash it.
If it is legal, yes.
If you get a check, are you going to cash it?
Well, Jack, it depends on timing. I've gone on record that it seems to me that before any check should be distributed by the clerk's office, I think this issue, which admittedly is at this stage a bit confusing, should be resolved and hopefully that will be resolved in the next few days.
So here you have a government of which you are proud members, which has completely fouled up the question of giving you people an increase. Is that correct?
No. I don't think those checks will be coming out until this is resolved.
But first
And
of all,
that's
I was
why
gonna-
I'm quite prepared to accept it when it comes. But it's not an increase, Jack. This is an additional sum to compensate for additional cost only while we're in Victoria.
But this extra money in your hand,
It will be extra money in my hand.
so it's an increase.
It is,
If I give
the
you
house sits that
$50
long.
right now, you're getting an increase, aren't you?
No, you're giving me a gift.
Jack, let's not avoid the issue. There has been an all-party committee of the House consider this matter for a number of months. They brought down a unanimous report, and in that report, the important thing is they noted, look at fellas, we've got a very important principle to establish.
More money.
British Columbia, the concept of being reimbursed for some exceptional expenses, in particular the capital living allowance, British Columbia has a per capita legislative cost of $2.77. Every man, woman, and child have to pay $2.77 to have democracy as we presently have it. That's by far, I mean by far, the lowest in this country. Newfoundland is at the highest, ironically, but the others range up in the $10 to $15 per person. Ours is extremely low.
Well, the CBC only costs us 54 cents a day.
A day.
The legislature, yes, a day per person, per Canadian. And you're now $2.77 a day.
No,
per year.
Per year.
Excuse
Per
me,
year.
per year.
The nearest other province is over $4.
What are you trying to tell me?
We did something.
That I
we
only have to pay
acknowledged-
$2.77 to run the legislature?
To have
That's
us
per
in
year.
Victoria.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we make it $4 and double your money?
Well, that wouldn't be proper in this
Not at
time.
this time.
But Jack, that's the important principle that was established by this committee and accepted by the House. Now,
So
the,
you're worth $2.77 a year.
Jack, you know I'm worth much more than that. It's only costing you
Who dug
270.
this up? Bob Pleckus
Doug, what up?
dug this $2.77
That's a fact, Jack.
a
You know
year.
how important
there's-
facts are.
Probably came out of Stats Canada, I don't know.
No, let's start at the beginning. Where are you to get $6,000 a year extra as a parliamentary secretary?
When I was asked to take the position, I was asked to take the position on the basis of $3,000 per year, and that's the basis on which I accepted it.
Was the legislation when it first passed $6,000 a year?
As a matter of fact, it was.
Did the Premier refer it to Peck, who knocked it down to $3,000 a year?
He actually handed over the entire compensation package issue to Mr. Peck as a compensation stabilization commissioner. And Mr. Peck pointed out that even though I do not have authority over the legislature, looking at the principles that you have asked me to adhere to, legislature, I think on a couple of these aspects you should reconsider it. Not the parliamentary secretary.
I get that.
Not
so
the
he's
not the
going to
pension.
get what was $6,000 is now $3,000 a year extra as a parliamentary secretary. He's going to get that. As a deputy assistant speaker, do you get the same extra allowance?
Legislation provides for $4,000 a year on that,
Will you get an extra $4,000?
not the 6.
Has that been half to 2?
I don't know, and I haven't discussed it with the Premier or anyone in his staff as to what that compensation for the extra duties are going to be, Jack.
Do you get your capital city living allowance when you're in Victoria?
Supposedly, the legislation at the moment is $3,000 a year for every MLA except those living within the Victoria area.
How much would you get a day extra in your hand to buy food? $60 a day.
If it is at $60 a day for a maximum of 50 days, if the House sits for 50 days in the year.
And if you're a local MLA in Victoria, you only
You
get
get
$30 a day. So you'll get your extra $3,000 plus your extra $60 a day.
To a maximum of $50, 50 days.
Yeah. Now, I understand there's another great goodie in the pay package that you might want to tell me about. Your improved pensions.
Well, I'm a little young to really be putting my mind to pensions and having only served for under 2 years, but my understanding is that rather than having to serve 7 years and win 3 elections, the wording has been changed so you have to serve 7 years.
7 years.
7 years or 2 elections.
Or two
Or
elections.
2 elections.
So after 2 elections, you would qualify for what pension you've got built up.
That's
if
correct.
If you have served 7 years.
Or 2 elections.
No, you've got to have both, 2 elections and 7 years.
Oh, I'm sorry. You see, I really haven't put my mind to it.
Are you like the MPs in the House of Commons who can hold it back till they're 55 and then get a massive index pension at 55?
I'm not too sure on that.
I don't know.
You fellas display an astonishing lack of interest in a pension. You're close to the pensionable age
I am.
of 55.
Yep.
And you're not that far away.
Thanks a lot, Webster.
Oh, yeah.
I just had my 39th birthday, and I'm not.
John, you've got to be joking. Eh?
Where's makeup?
Now, has the Social Credit Caucus, all except Angus, decided to accept this money?
I don't think the Social Credit Caucus has made a decision on it, Jack. I've been asked by the press last Thursday evening if the check comes on the capital cost allowance, would I accept it? And I said, certainly I'll accept it.
And what do you say to that? You've asked people not to accept that capital cost allowance.
Oh, I'm just stating my own position, but it seems to me ridiculous if we have a number of checks floating around that we're going to have to get called back and reissue. So my position, very simply, is don't issue any checks until the matter's resolved.
If you were running a used car lot like this, would you be in a mess? I mean, this confusion. It's terrible, isn't it?
Well, keep in mind how the confusion came about. The legislature unanimously accepted a report, passed a piece of legislation. Then the Premier said, let's have this matter reviewed by the person who we, as legislature, are asking to review all public sector settlements as well as private sector settlements. Now, the Premier, I think, quite correctly figured that, even though we've got what some people are calling a very attractive pay package increase, let's have it reviewed. And that's all that occurred, and the review said, reconsider it, legislature. And that's the obligation, I think, on all of us, to accept that we've been asked, not directed, asked by the compensation stabilization.
Not to accept the paycheck.
No.
He's asked us to reconsider.
That may involve bringing back in an amending piece of legislation, Jack.
Even it may all have to go back into the House again.
Yes.
And then again, we may say, we've considered it, we've reconsidered it, and it's being left just the way it is.
You gentlemen have certainly managed to foul up your simple pay increases.
Well, that's because we've been very cautious and to this juncture been prepared to play by the same rules we've let down or put down for others.
And you're certainly not going to take this money until it's all cleared away, are you?
That's my position.
But you'll take it the moment it comes.
I'm confident that it'll be cleared away when the check comes.
I think we should do a little. I've got a bit of a cold this morning and I can't shout much, which is a great disadvantage for me. But I think we can leave it to listeners to just have a small conversation with Angus Ree, who's never been on my program before, and with John Parks, and tell them what they think of the propriety and how much they support the need for MLAs to get an extra 3,000 or 6,000 of better pensions at this time in this day and age. Is that fair?
Anytime, Jack, sure.
Because I'm sure everybody will be in total support of you taking more money.
And if they misunderstand, I'd be more than prepared to try to explain it to them.
Clarify.
After the break. I'm merely the censor this morning about your conversations with John Ree, John Parks, and Angus Ree. Go ahead, please.
That's me.
That's you.
Yeah, this is, I agree with you. These guys have followed up what really is just a basic thing. I don't disagree that they need an increase, but I think it's just another matter of gamesmanship, and I think the Premier forwarding this over to Peck to check it out is just something to deflect public attention from all the other major issues we've got in this province. I've got one recommendation. I think maybe if we can go by last week's news reports, Vaughn Palmer, their favorite reporter, maybe they should get Abraham Rutstein from Toronto University to maybe head a commission to figure out exactly how to award these guys their pay. That'd be a good joke on those clowns there.
He's calling you clowns.
I don't mind having an early morning shot taken at me, but the concept of an independent commission probably is the one that politicians should be very, very quick to accept, because there's no doubt in my mind, regardless of the state of the economy, the time of the year, or the moment in your tenure, there is absolutely no way politicians can bring about recommendations for their own pay raises without getting scalded.
Well, Jack, back in '81, we tried to solve this, and we set up a formula so MLAs would not have to look at it all the time. And we set a formula where the MLAs would get 75%, not 100%, 75% of the average of the private sector raises during a year. We got, at the end of 1981, we got a raise of about 11% as a result of that. Then, that's the end of 81. In February 82, when we entered into the restraint program, we took a 10% cut and did away with that formula because it became obvious with the economic problems in the province that the MLAs could show, and the government could show leadership by taking a pay cut as an indication to everybody. It has been tried to set it up impartially, that there are rules, that these things won't happen, that we don't have to vote on our own pays. But it doesn't work because economic times change.
So you had to pass an act, Bill 46. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
I'd like to say that I'm totally in support of the increase these gentlemen will be receiving. And I do think, Mr. Webster, you've been a wee bit hypocritical, if I might say so, over the last couple of days. You had George Peterson on last week. You didn't inquire as to his salary increase in the recent 12 months.
Yes, I did.
It went to $125,000.
120,000.
And also, you did not inquire about the early retirement bonus that is given to the staff, the faculty at UBC, who receive 2 full salaries, 2 years' salaries when they retire early as an incentive. Now, that's a tremendous...
Yeah, $2.7 million. But these people have been overpaid for years. Like Mr. Tom at BCIT, who gets $95,000 plus $15,000 expenses. And that you're comparing apples and oranges, ma'am, and as such, I'll exercise my right to cut you off.
But thank you for the support.
Yes.
Go ahead from Penticton.
Are these your friends or mine?
They're not mine.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I have a statement written down here. I'll just read it off really quickly and then leave it to you to comment.
We don't like written statements, but try it.
Okay. I think it's somewhat hypocritical when we as a society rant and rave over a 6 to 7% increase in an MP's salary, and yet we don't even bat an eye when a baseball player receives $25 million to check a piece of rawhide around a field. And don't kid yourself, we pay that baseball player's wages when we buy the product of the company that pays him, whether it's a beer or a night's entertainment at the baseball park. Where are our priorities? This is what I want to know.
Okay, thank you. That was it. You had 3 social creditors up to now.
Well, no, that was a very logical,
maybe
well-thought-out point of view.
Maybe you can win an election.
Well,
Have I taken Penticton?
I think we would.
Well, how done? Go ahead, please.
Good morning.
Good morning.
For what it's worth, I'd like to speak with John Parks. I did vote social credit in the last election. I'll never do it again. I am not very much in favor of what the government's been doing. However, I am in favor of this pay increase. It come to my attention that one of our MLAs is taking tickets outside of Victoria Theatre in order to subsidize himself so he can stay there and be an MLA in Victoria.
You're joking.
Obviously, they need this allowance, and it's absurd.
Well, I'll just follow up on that.
Just a minute.
I'm not going to ask who it is.
No, I don't want to embarrass him. Maybe he'll tell me off the air. Will you tell me off the air the name of the MLA? Oh, well, in that case, we shall ask, we'll find out from the opposition. He says it's an opposition MLA selling tickets in Victoria.
Well, I would be surprised if that's the case. However, there's no doubt about it. The cost of living in Victoria is becoming more and more expensive, tremendously so. I know Angus and I both had very hefty rent increases in this past 6 months.
How much is your rent increase?
Mine, in the time I've been in Victoria, has gone from $275 a month to $465. In other words, almost $200 a month, and I have a permanent place there.
The same apartment?
The same apartment, so that's roughly $2,400 a year increase I've had in rent while I'm over there.
That's a good point, isn't it?
Oh, it's a tremendous cost.
On top of that, our parking for my car when I'm going to Victoria has gone up $20 a month in the same time. Look at the cost of my gasoline when I do take my car.
Go ahead. Go ahead, please.
I think if there's going to be an increase in pay, it should be based on principles and ethics of the present-day economy. It's not that way right now because they have a little bit of guilty conscience where $6,000 is back to $3,000. It's just too much of the snoot in the trough.
Well, too much of the snout in the trough, he says.
I really would be hard-pressed to understand what he means by that. And if you'd like to explain why he thinks that MLAs are being overpaid, I'd be pleased to hear it.
Well, he thinks they're being overpaid because there are 228,000 unemployed who have no hope of getting anything extra at all.
That's right.
That's why he thinks. He thinks you should be making a similar sacrifice.
That's right.
Because you are the representatives of our democracy in action.
Well, Jack, maybe our sacrifice is not as great as that of the unemployed person. but I cannot live on the salary I am paid as an MLA. My living expenses are made up by some increases or encroaching on my savings, and also because my wife runs a business and she supplements our living. I couldn't live on what I'm paid.
Can you tell me exactly what you make as an MLA without me guessing?
$26,000 base salary, plus $13,000
tax-free.
Tax-free, and then that's what the individual receives. There's another $2,100 per month that MLAs are allowed to run their constituency association,
which they have to spend.
We don't receive that. It goes to the constituency organ or secretary. She looks after it.
My office costs at least $3,000 a month to run, so it's $13,000 tax-free allowance.
So you're subsidizing your office. You get your $13,000 tax-free, your $26,000, and now hopefully you'll get your $3,000 up front.
That's for the parliamentary secretary.
Plus your $50 a day.
The important one, Jack, the truly important principle is the capital living allowance.
$50 a day.
Or whatever. I mean, I'm not concerned at this moment as to the amount or the number of days. It seems to me it's about time British Columbia realized that we require a capital living allowance to send our members from other than the greater Victoria area to Victoria. We are the last province to accept that, except for PEI. And of course, you can drive to the capital in, 35, 40 minutes from anywhere in the PEI.
Good idea. Go ahead, please.
Jack?
Yep.
I'm a government worker, and I just found out that I was supposed to get a 1% pay raise in April, and this has been denied to me because the province is not in a recovery. We're still in restraint. The MLAs and I are paid from the same trough, which is the public. How can they justify their pay raise as well?
Can I ask that gentleman what were his raises since February 1982?
3%, sir.
How much, sir?
How much?
3%.
Mine have not been, I have not had one at all.
However, I got no percent before that, and you got 11, which was rolled back to 1. My rent also has gone up $125 in 2 years, and the money that I have gotten on my pay raise hasn't covered half of that, as well as your indexing of gasoline taxes and all other taxes that is automatic. I don't get any raises to cover that either. How am I supposed to live?
You say you've just been advised that as a government employee you're losing an
under
increase.
Under the contract, there's an independent arbitration group. I'm not sure how it was represented, but they reviewed the economy as such. It was part of the original contract they had. Was it a year ago or 2 years ago, sir?
2 years ago.
2 years ago.
And they have ruled that the 1% is not applicable as an increase because the province is still hasn't got the ability to pay.
Well, it's not the ability to pay. There hasn't been an improvement in the economy as such to warrant it.
Productivity improvement.
No, it's not productivity, Jack. It's dealing with the overall economy of the province.
Do you agree with them on that, caller?
Well, if they can't afford to pay me 1%, how can they afford to pay these gentlemen 7.5% because we're paid from the same trough?
Good point.
All the more reason for the second look.
More after the break. The office of the Leader of the Opposition in Victoria denies that any member of the opposition is in the position whereby he has to moonlight by selling tickets in a movie house in Victoria to get by. And the two social credit MLAs here, Angus Rhee and John Parks, do not know of any of their members who might be selling tickets in a movie house to get by. Am I correct in that, gentlemen?
That is correct. But it's fair, it's fair to note that the non-cabinet members of the legislature are supposed to have the opportunity to have other employment. Very few do.
Oh yes, like union officials, lawyers. You're a lawyer, don't you have a private practice on the side?
I haven't practiced since I was elected in 1979. I'm a full-time politician.
I forget what you do for a living again.
I'm an MLA now. I used to be a lawyer.
Used to be a lawyer.
I am a lawyer.
You were a lawyer, and you still have a practice going on.
No, I don't, Jack. I'm afraid it's cost me my practice.
Well, that means $200,000 a year that you're not making anymore, doesn't it?
I feel I've manifested restraint.
Go ahead, please. From Vernon.
Good morning, Jack.
Morning.
And guests. I have two questions. Number one of your guests said that he can't live on his salary as an MLA. which according to my figuring is roughly around $40,000 a year with his expense account. And if this is the case, why doesn't he resign as an MLA, go out in the real world and find a better paying job so that he can live in comfort? My husband and I are living on $1,000 a month, war veterans allowance. We seem to be managing. We're not going hungry. Number two, why did not the Premier or the all-party committee hand their schedule of proposed pay raises to Mr. Peck before all this frou-frou and it was okayed by the legislature and all the rest of it? I think that it's simply a matter of political games they're playing, trying to make the opposition look bad, which they have done very effectively. And I think it's disgusting that this sort of thing is going on, as when someone before me said there is so much legislative work to be done with unemployment and all the rest of the mess that BC is in. Those are my two questions. I'll hang up. Pardon me.
Well, as to the first issue, Jack, I do not expect to make money as an MLA. Nobody asked me to run. I knew what the pay schedule was when I ran. I volunteered to run, and I'm not complaining that I'm not being paid enough. I'm just stated as a fact that I cannot live on that. And I knew that at the time I ran, Jack. My wife's shop, Sweet Video, supplements my living expenses.
She subsidizes your career as an MLA?
Yes.
You are both gentlemen full of self-sacrifice to perform your public duty.
That's correct.
Go ahead, please.
Well, Mr. Webster, thank you for this chance. I'm a 51-year-old woman who has worked and raised 5 children. I'm unemployed and now I'm on gain. You allow me $200 a month rent and $230 for support. I'm supposed to find rental for $200 a month, including phone and hydro. That only leaves the opening of one housekeeping room. How can you possibly expect me on $200 a month to find something to rent? So what happens is out of the $230 support, one has to use that for food, and part of that goes to rent. My rent's $325. I don't know if this is bad language. If it is, you give me a beat, but I consider you're pimping off of the poor.
Thank you, ma'am. How do you answer that, gentleman? You're pimping off the poor.
Well, obviously that woman is going through a great turmoil in her life, and the thought of having to exist on $200 a month is obviously somewhat abhorrent. But notwithstanding that, I don't think that we are pimping off anyone. I think we, and I mean both sides of the House, opposition as well as my colleagues on the government side, are doing their level best to represent the people of this province.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I have a number of points that have been bothering me considerably. One, in private enterprise, for results, your pay is based upon results. We've had 66 days a year, and the results, quite frankly, I don't think warrant an increase in wages. Other than that, it's the only job I know for which absolutely no qualifications, not even sanity, is required.
Sir, I'm not going to say I resemble the last remark, because I resent it. I'm afraid that it's too easy for someone to grab a statistic out of the air like 66 days, our last session, and suggest that an MLA works but 66 days a year. I mean, that's folly. An MLA works probably closer to, I would say, a minimum of a 6-day week, probably 11 and a half months a year. I know I personally have not had a holiday for 18 months, but I don't think I'm the exception.
I haven't either.
Well, and I say I don't believe you are the exception. The MLA's job is not just when he or she sits in Victoria in the legislature. In fact, I find it probably the least busy time of my life during the year when I'm in Victoria, because I'm not running to the myriad of meetings in my constituency, which I'm doing when the House is not in session. So that 66-day session per year is a red herring and doesn't come close to recognizing.
Go ahead, please.
Well, I think the key issue here is not how much money they're getting, but rather the fact that the province is disintegrating and they don't deserve anything.
province is not
Thank you,
disintegrating, ma'am.
Well, some people think it's a pretty bad way.
We
Things
have
are
just
not
gone.
good,
We've
but-
just gone through one heck of a depression, Jack. It's the only depression I've lived through, and I'm pleased to say that I believe we have lived through it.
You're not suggesting we've gone through it, are you?
I do.
There's no improvement in the unemployment figures.
Well, there's always a lag.
There's
in
a
things
lot of other reasons for that too, because of the unemployment. We're going to continue to have high unemployment with new technology, Jack, regretfully, and it's a big problem that government's going to have to address in the future.
More after the break. My two guests this morning are Angus Rees, Social Credit, MLA, North Vancouver, Capilano, and John Parks, Millardville, Coquitlam. And this call to them about anything at all. Go ahead, please.
Morning, Jack.
Morning.
Wasn't it too long ago where the government came out and said that there was a 7% increase that the government MLAs were going to get?
Yep.
Okay, that's an awful funny thing, because wasn't it the Social Credit Party that was bringing out the garbage about a 6 and 5 restraint?
No. Yes, it was.
Well,
they both did it.
2 years.
They both did
We've
it.
been through the 6 and the 5, yeah.
But John's just told me the depression's over.
6 and 5 restraint they're bringing out, and here they're taking 7%. For what they do, they've done nothing for the BC guys, working guys, or anything. It's about time the government got off their butts and gave up their jobs and went and did a job, for God's sakes.
Well, sir, I would urge you to look carefully at the imminent budget that's about to come down. I'm not sure if it's going to be this week or the next week, but it's
Thursday afternoon.
Relatively imminent, and I think you'll be very pleased with the progressive steps that your government is bringing out in hopes of truly bringing about a rapid recovery.
You mean to say you found some money?
No, we found that after 3 years of sacrifice that all British Columbians have had to partake in, that we have now established a much sounder base to encourage recovery and growth.
That sounds great, John. That sounds wonderful.
It's
Go
also
ahead.
factual.
Yeah, I know. Go ahead, please. Go ahead, please. Go ahead, please.
Yes, Jack?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm going to take you back to 1964 first.
Yep.
You remember picking up a guy on the viaduct who was hitchhiking?
Not particularly, no.
And I told you, you asked me where I got my tattoos from, and I said I was out of jail.
Sounds like the old days, yeah.
I've been out for 20 years.
Right.
And I am now a businessman myself. I've got ads in the paper. I've been paying for 5 weeks. I only got 3 calls.
You mean for people to work?
Yeah, I'm in drain tile and gutter service.
Much you pay a man?
I pay my man $9 an hour.
And you can't get anybody?
Oh no, that's not what I'm referring to, Jack. What I'm referring to is these gentlemen that are speaking, they're complaining about it costs them $20 extra to park their cars.
Right.
They have apartments, their rent increased.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't even have a car. I can't even afford one. The reason I called in, that lady that mentioned she gets $430
Right.
a month on welfare.
Mm.
These people are lucky that they are working and have a position. That's all.
Well, I get the point, but I don't get, it doesn't seem to be that relevant. Are you for these two guys getting pay increases, or are you against them?
I'm against it.
Good, we got that clear. Hope your tattoos are still there. Go ahead, please.
Morning.
Morning.
I can truly not believe that these gentlemen are on television and saying that they want a 7.5% increase. Their government is the one that came out with the restraint measures. The schools are suffering. It's like they live in an ivory tower. They should just wander down to some of the food banks and talk to the real people out there who try to get jobs but can't. The restraint measures, everybody gets unemployed. There's no money. And the schools, I'm a BCIT student, we've had entire programs cut because of their government's restraint measures. Our entire counseling center is going to be cut, most likely. Our teachers are leaving. Students can't even get any more their student loans. It's completely repayable. There's no more bursaries there. How can they morally justify asking for a 7.5% increase when everybody else in this damn province is hurting?
Well, I'll just take two of the many points that you raised, ma'am. First of all, it is difficult to appreciate that we're not talking about, quote, a pay increase per se for the members of the legislature. We're talking about bringing in a capital civilian allowance, which is a straight out-of-pocket reimbursement function.
It's a pay increase, John.
It's a compensation
It's
package.
money. It's cash.
It is, Jack.
Well, and it's tax-free.
But Jack, the opposite is, if you expect your MLAs in the future to be willing to run for the legislature, give up their otherwise well-established jobs, leave their family and wherever they're coming from, and spend, be it 3 months or 6 months in Victoria, you know, there are added expenses to doing that.
You've got to give them the lolly. But here's a woman pleading from the heart, looking at the mayhem that's happened in every institution and saying, how can you twits take money now? And you say, to get the proper MLAs, we must give them the compensation.
Some of the
institutions
and the schools are suffering, and that's probably because we've given them too much in the past.
Because your government was too sloppy with pay increases for teachers.
We allowed too much.
That's it exactly.
Jack, are you aware that since 1981, let's say, my salary has gone up $600 a year, $62 a month since 1981, $600 a year. The average teacher's salaries in this province have gone from $21,000 a year to $36,000 a year, Jack.
Oh, I know that.
No, excuse me, I'm wrong. From $25,000 to $36,000. $11,000 a year. The MLA salaries in the same period have gone up $600 a year, Jack.
As John knows better than anybody, if you have a system of arbitration and you put a lawyer in as an arbitrator, it means they get more and more money up in the CPI every year, right?
You've got it.
That's what happened, wasn't it?
That's what happened.
And you can't bitch about the teachers now.
No.
You
I appreciate that. And that's
correct.
what we have been trying to get a handle on in the last couple of years, Jack, on the costs of government in this province.
Anyway, at least you haven't been able to get a handle on additional money for MLAs. That's going to be handed out.
Well, we got half a handle.
Half a handle. John, it must be embarrassing to sit here and be told by poor people that you've no right to take it and have to justify it as best you can.
It's embarrassing, but more so it's frustrating, because they obviously don't understand what's involved in the role of an MLA, and that's our fault as much as anyone's, that we haven't explained to the people the system.
Your image is awful as a government.
Well, may I note that's one of the very important reasons for parliamentary secretaries. It's to enable the ministers and or his parliamentary secretary to get out there and either be on call to do ministry duties, or be in the House when there's a question from the opposition, or be out there throughout the province and explain what we're doing.
But there's only one guy in this government that matters a damn. I mean, you know that. It's Bennett.
Well, the Premier certainly is the leader of our government.
We never see. Where is he hiding? Down a hole somewhere?
It's funny, I see him frequently.
Reporters in the station see him daily in the legislature.
Hey?
Daily.
Is that when he says, fire Marty Gwynn?
That's a cheap one.
I apologize for that
Jack,
cheap shot.
That was.
I apologize, Mr. Bennett. You didn't say that on camera.
Oh,
Fire Marty Gwynn.
He's very effective.
He certainly is very effective. You talking about Marty Gwynn or
No, the Premier.
I'm talking about probably the most effective Premier in this
thank
country.
you very much for helping me out this morning in a very difficult situation because I have a cold. I probably shouldn't be out of my bed this morning, and I may go home to it shortly.
Well, thank you, Jack, and look after yourself.
Enjoy your capital city allowance, and remember, it's not extra money. It merely enables you to do your function as an MLA properly.
I won't forget that, Jack.
Thank you very
Jack.
much.
Thank you, Jack.
Next, Sylvia Porter after the break. I was always a fan of Western music anyway. I've got a favorite cowboy song that KD Lang. The BCGEU is the most powerful union perhaps in British Columbia in some aspects. And they fired this woman on her 50th birthday the other day, Sylvia Porter. And that, of course, is a matter of interest to us. When unions fire staff representatives, we wonder why. Were you fired because you were trying to set up a decent union for the staff representatives in the BCGEU?
I'm not certain why I was fired, except that on Monday, Peter Gall, on my behalf, filed an application at the Labor Relations Board to have the staff union declared an employer-dominated union.
In other words, you're telling me that the staff union of the BCGEU is not, in your view, or the views of your lawyer, a proper democratic union?
No, you need only read the staff collective agreement to understand that it's an employer-dominated union.
So you're complaining about the collective agreement set up between the BCGEU and its own staff?
Well, I'm not really complaining. The essence of this is that every day for 5.5 years or 4.5 years, I've gone out and defended people and gone to arbitration and won arbitrations and saw that the workers that I was responsible for were treated with dignity and respect. And the hypocrisy of that every day with what was happening to me and other staff reps became too great. And there was no way to solve it internally, because when I went to the staff union for help a week ago I went to him on a Thursday for help. And I said, and he had known for some time, this has been going on for me personally since November of '82. And so when I went to him for help and told him I couldn't stand this any longer and we had to do something, he told me I should book off sick. And I said, for how long? And he said, until after the convention. And the reason he said that is that Norm Richards is stepping down and there'll be an election for a new president. And many people on staff have their fingers crossed and whatever, that the new president will take control of the union, because presently the paid assistant directors and directors control the union.
You're saying that in your application that the BCGEU staff union has illegally failed to defend you in your relationships and your troubles with the BCGEU.
Yes, and that's true.
Well, what troubles have you had? You're a union staff person working with a big successful union. What troubles can you have? Wages?
No, I couldn't even tell you what my salary is. I think it's approximately $40,000 a year, plus I have a leased car which I was supposed to turn in Thursday by 5, which I'm still driving.
Did they tell you why you were fired?
They said there were 2 letters, and one letter was signed by Norm Richards, and I wasn't too interested in that letter. I just glanced at it quickly, and it said something that I had made threats against the union, and I'm not sure whether it said I refused to go to the employee assistance plan or if I refused to book off sick. But certainly that was true. I did refuse to do that.
Robbie Robinson read a statement which said, Ms. Porter, over the past 3 days, has directed a number of serious threats against the union through officials of the BCGEU. Mrs. Porter's conduct in making those threats against the union was considered incompatible with the ongoing employment relationship based on mutual trust and confidence. Oh, you threatening to knock somebody's head off?
I'm not sure what the threats are, and I think Robbie may have been writing them as he said that.
Really, it's really just an internecine piece of warfare within the BCGEU.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't.
Try and sell me better on it.
First of all, I used to be a member of the BCGEU. I was clerk 4 in the Ministry of Lands, Parks and Housing. I became a very high-profile elected person in the union. In May of 1980, I made a speech at the Canadian Labour Congress, which got a standing ovation. I don't think anyone from the GEU before or since has ever had that, including JLF Fryer. I made the speech on Thursday, and on Monday I was called and offered a job, which was then posted 6 weeks later, which I then applied for, and which I then began working the day after Labor Day, 1980. But you have to go back a little bit in time to what the BCGEU was when it began.
Is it a fact that you feel you have been unfairly dismissed by the BCGEU?
I know I have a perfect wrongful dismissal suit.
And you want the full hearing in front of the LRB into your dismissal?
That's right.
And are you going to sue them for wrongful dismissal?
Well, certainly I've handled any number of other people's wrongful dismissal suits, which were far less clear-cut than mine, and won them. And I trust that Peter Gall will do whatever he has to do for me.
My thanks to Sylvia Porter. Thanks, Sylvia. Best of luck.
Thank you.
And wait a second. I'll be back with some Capilano College professors after the break. Capilano College faces a cut of how much, $1 million? That's
right.
From its $11 million budget. Now I have two gentlemen here, Walter Stewart, Capilano College Faculty Association, which is Mr. Stewart, and Bob Cook. Now, you're going out in a campaign to try and stop these cuts, so you're not in a lost cause.
We don't think we're in a lost cause. What we're attempting to do is get the message across to our community that their community college is threatened. We think they should be involved in making the decisions of what happened to their college. Our survey shows that they support what the college has been doing in the North Shore. That's threatened now by these cutbacks. We want them to know, so we're inviting them to join us in a campaign. We're asking them to come to a public meeting on March 27th and be part of the decision-making of the future of Capilano College.
But the point I was making, Mr. Cook, is that faced with a government such as we have in Victoria, with its definite financial restrictions, do you think that you can put back the $1 million cut that Capilano is facing?
Well, the proposal to make the cut is a political decision, and we feel that if we make the community aware, the community will have its will done if it can express to the government that it feels that maintaining the budget is a priority.
What will the cuts do to Capilano on this occasion?
We haven't had the announcement yet as exactly where those cuts are going to take place. You can imagine that $1 million out of $11 million is going to see a significant reduction in offerings. We're going to have a lot of the lower enrollment courses, but important courses for students to complete diploma programs are going to be threatened. We're going to see a serious reduction in faculty and staff. And we're going to see a general decline in service around the institution.
Have you suffered from any cuts before just now?
Certainly. Our view is that the college has done its share. It's already lost $1 million over the last 2 years. There have been courses that have been dropped, class sizes have increased, courses are making do with less in terms of the materials. Even the courses that are working to give people job skills in high technology, computer technology, all courses are doing with fewer materials, and the college has tightened its belt. If there are further cuts at this point, we see that it is going to damage the way in which the community is served.
How do you stand on faculty salaries, negotiations, and/or rollbacks?
The faculty salaries at Capilano College are low compared to the salaries in other colleges in the province. The College Faculty Association has offered a rollback. That has been declined. We are not asking for any increases. We're looking for status quo in our own negotiations. Those are not part of this campaign, though. Our campaign is to let the community know what's happening to our college.
You had a poll. What did that poll show you? The Faculty Association paid for a poll.
Yes, it showed several things. There's a very high awareness of the college on the North Shore, and I guess the most telling result was that 78% of the people polled were in favor of retaining the current budget. There were only 15% that were in favor of a cut. Another interesting fact was that when you include those who want to both maintain or increase, that is, to restore the budgets to previous level, the number goes up to 90% of the people polled were in favor of either maintaining or restoring budgets.
When the compositions of the Faculty Association boards changed a couple of sessions ago so that you have less effective people on the boards?
The boards now are entirely appointed by the provincial government. Before the College and Provincial Institutes Act, there were local representatives from the various school boards that are part of our region. Now the members of our board are entirely appointed by the provincial government. However, the boards do have the responsibility to represent the interests of the community, and we hope that they will join with us in urging that the government reconsider the proposed cut.
How about tuition fees in your place? I know UBC and SFU have gone up like that. Have your tuition fees similarly gone up startlingly?
Yes, 30 to 100% over the last 2 years. The limit, the cap on the top of the fees has been dropped, and some programs have increased by up to 100%.
Can it be said of places like Capilano College that they are frills, that much of the work is educational frills and not really necessary today?
No, I don't believe it can be said, and it shows from our support in the community, from our survey, that the community doesn't believe that is true. The community is very supportive of having
education available in the community. They're very supportive of the kind of education that Capilano College has been doing. We're anxious to continue that. We're not a frill. We're making it possible for people to take the high-tech jobs that the government wants to develop in this province.
Did I see here that your student fees will be $1,200 a year now?
Not up to $1,200. If they were to take all 3 semesters, they'd be slightly in excess of $1,200. It depends on the program mix, but many students are now paying in the order of $400 and in excess per semester.
So you are now actually training people for the new high-tech things, not in high-tech as such, are you?
Certainly, the community college, being a small facility, has the ability to respond to the needs of employers and of students coming to us. All of the career programs, for example, have the requirement that at least a course concerning the impact of computers in the discipline be taken by each student, and also each program has an advisory committee which is made up of professionals in the field who advise the college on what the content of those programs should be.
What do you want the public to do for Capilano College? What do you want you're supposed to do on the North Shore? When is your rally?
The rally is on March 27th.
March 27th.
It's in the North Vancouver Centennial Theatre at 7:30.
7:30.
It's a concert and town meeting to discuss the issue, and we ask that people come to that meeting to show their support for the continuation of the college as they have known it.
And I understand that you're financing this by a day's pay from the faculty. How many faculty do you have?
About 200.
About 200. So you're not a massive college. How many students do you have? Overall?
There are about 5,000, bodies come through the place. It works out to an equivalent, a full-time equivalent of about 3,000.
And it's been established how
to fulfill the need of the community, to provide training and retraining for people already in the workforce, to meet the needs of the information age that we are finding ourselves in.
Well, I'd like to give you some more time this morning, but I can't because I've got the bad dose of the flu and I better get myself on tape. My thanks to Walter Stewart of Capilano College Faculty Association and Bob Cook of Capilano College Faculty Association. Best of luck, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll be back after the break.
You know, technology leaves a lot of us cold. We're like the Luddites of 150 years ago in England who smashed the first mechanical knitting machines. A lot of us would like to stop technology before it changes everything that's familiar to us. But not the guy who lives in this odd houseboat in Vancouver. He not only stays in touch with technology, he wants to be one step ahead. There's a sensor, he tells me, right down here that tells him when the newspaper boy delivers the newspaper, it sets off a computer that starts his coffee machine. Let's go meet this character. Frank! How you doing? Mark Schneider, Webster Show.
Yes.
Here, let me get in. How are you? They call you Dr. Tomorrow, is that right?
Well, that's what some do, yes.
Now listen, I want you to tell Jack why your sensor for the newspaper doesn't work right now. Explain to Jack.
Yeah, well, first of all, my robot, Naboo, is out learning Japanese with my director of research and development, who's 13, by the way.
13 years old.
Yeah.
Director of research and development.
Yeah.
Got it.
Vice President, too.
Vice President.
Yeah. And so I have a sensor normally here, and when the morning province arrives, it alerts Esmeralda and Naboo.
Esmeralda.
Yeah.
Esmeralda.
Esmeralda is my computer.
Your computer.
Yes.
Got it.
And Esmeralda turns on the espresso coffee machine.
And the name of the coffee machine?
Do you know it doesn't have one?
Oh,
we were debating of one, but that didn't seem appropriate. Yes. And now, then the aroma from
How about Juan de Mocha?
Well, that's not bad. Yeah. The aroma wakes me up in the morning, and then we have a backup that Naboo wakes me up too in case the coffee isn't strong enough.
So the bottom line is, unfortunately, your computer, your robot is out learning Japanese.
Yes,
I
yes.
see.
Because he has to be up to date, you know.
I see. And when the robot comes back,
then we just activate everything, yeah.
Will it be able to give you those fancy Japanese massages and things like that?
Well, its fingers are cold. However, there are improvements coming, and you know, there are several people are now saying that within 5 short years, humans will be marrying robots. Some humans, and in many cases, they'll be better than the existing variety of spouse.
I'm afraid that the way you're talking, that there will be no need for people at all in the next few years.
No, the people are going, if they embrace technology, they will benefit from it. But if they resist it, they'll be victimized
And it's
by
perfectly legal.
Almost everything I do is legal.
Show me some of your stuff.
Okay, well, first of all, I have quite a sophisticated shortwave station here. It can give me just literally millions of channels.
Okay.
And I have one answering machine here. I also have these decoders that translate Morse code into English for me. You know, the da.
You mean you don't have to do the did-it-da and get it down and
No.
use a scratch pad and make sure nobody's drowning out there?
No, that's for
that does it
people.
For you. Oh, I see.
And then I have a ordinary AM/FM radio
I see.
with dual cassettes.
Well, that's standard.
And this is my amplifier for what I term the video jungle.
What are all these buttons up here? Do you mind if I push one?
Well,
Oops.
go right ahead. No.
Is that all right?
Yes.
What does that do?
Well, that
Oh, I
one
see. It
that would play the audio track from my first #1 VCR over the phone line. So if I have a client in Tokyo...
Can I do something wrong here?
Not
by pushing these?
No, not
Okay.
really. And so if I have a client in Tokyo and there's something important coming in off the satellite, or if I want to replay the audio track off a VCR video, I can splice him right in anywhere in the world. Now, all this is my switching. I have 576 different switching systems between everything that's here and my video cassette recorders and my satellite receiver and my stereo amplifier.
Satellite receiver.
Yes, everybody has one of those.
I see.
They should.
Everyone has a satellite receiver.
Well,
okay.
they should. And this is allows me remote control to swing my dish.
Oh, so you don't have to climb up on your roof and turn the dish around by yourself?
No, I just do it. It rains in BC, that's why I have that. So I can get 26 different satellite and also...
Oh, what are you watching here? This looks
this is
odd.
SIN.
It looks sinful.
Yeah.
What's SIN?
SIN is the Spanish International Network. It gives you anything from anywhere in the Spanish-speaking, as you can see.
Ooh. And do you like this is your thing, right?
Well, no, this is just one program. The news was on here earlier, and so I had this on just as you came in.
What's this? This looks like a little computer here.
Whoops!
What did I do?
Huh?
I just touched that and the light came on. What happened?
Yeah, well, if you want light.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, that's it.
Well,
What's
that's,
this?
you know, because you don't want to go the trouble of, turning switches and all that
Oh, no,
old-fashioned
I guess not. That's
way.
terrible.
Yeah.
Huh.
This is the new telephone directory they're using in France.
This is a telephone directory?
Yes.
Okay.
Instead of putting out the phone book like we do here, which is obsolete the day it's put out, they're now issuing these video sets. And instead of picking up the phone as we do here...
I see. You just sort of punch in...
And saying Jack Webster, and then they show the Jack Websters, even though he's got an unlisted number, then you just type in the name, and they all come up, and that way they eliminate the cost of printing the phone books, and also eliminates... all those information operators.
Doesn't do you a lot of good here, though, in British Columbia, does it? I mean, if you're interested... Oops.
Well, I can utilize it for something else, you see.
Oh, I see.
I can have it programmed for whatever I want to use it for, you see.
But if you want to find out...
I can feed in phone numbers, you see, anywhere here, and have it work for myself, yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay, let's go on. 3 phones here.
Yes.
Regular phone?
Regular phone and another answering machine that we can just do whenever we leave.
Okay.
This is a cordless phone, so if I go out in the parking lot or the end of the dock, or if I even sail around the harbor, I can use this.
Now, what's this odd phone with these funny numbers on the on the
this
headset?
is what we use as a survival technique. Now, say you wanted to phone Fairbanks, Alaska.
Okay.
A call that would cost you $10 costs me only $1.30. Now,
and this is legal, too?
Oh, this is everything, almost everything I do is legal. And so
Show me how it works.
Well, I just go like that, and then I feed in my code. I'm now in Linden, Washington, and can
Well, I thought you wanted to get to Fairbanks, Alaska.
Well, you go through Linden, Washington, to get to Fairbanks, Alaska, because then you're in the American network.
And this all makes sense, and it's cheap and legal.
It's at least 50% discount on almost all the calls, and that lets me operate far cheaper than any of the competition.
Okay.
This here's another monitoring TV.
Okay.
Color.
I know this looks like a TV set.
Yes, and it's also an AM, FM radio and a video cassette recorder, so I can record the tape of anything.
And this is some kind of type.
This is Randolph.
Randolph. Oh,
Yeah.
Randolph, of course, Randolph. Who's Randolph?
Randolph is my printer, and Randolph works with Esmeralda. And
Esmeralda.
Esmeralda.
Happy to meet you, Esmeralda.
Yeah, Esmeralda is brilliant, and she's a Franklin 1200 computer, and inside there, it's really got the full kitchen sink.
Frank, I got to ask you. I mean, you've got this house full of gizmos and gadgets. Don't you feel that at some point the Frank Ogden, the nice, warm, living, breathing, human Frank Ogden is somehow going to disappear? Isn't that what all this technology is going to do? Or just...
No. Well, you know, I don't believe that you should so get wrapped up in technology you forget the sound of the jungle. And, you know, this is what I do every year. I go for a couple of months and live with either the Aborigines in Australia or in Fiji. I spent 2 years with the voodooists in Haiti. I, a few years ago, spent quite a bit of time with the cannibals in Papua New Guinea.
Aren't you afraid, though, between getting split off, living part of your life in the future, part of your life in the past, that there's not going to be any present for you?
Well, no, I really studied the future by going into the jungle. In fact, I got my real insights into how computers work from the cannibals in Papua New Guinea.
So tell me, what's our future here?
Well, I think that in BC, it's going to be drastically different than it has been in the past, because we're not going to be able to live off the natural resources like we have for the last 100 years.
And we'll all be living in houseboats in Cole Harbour and Vancouver, surrounded by computers?
No, not everybody. But of course, we won't be living so much in high-rises either. I can certainly see that some of the high-rise office buildings here are going to become high-rise ghost towns.
Check ID?
Yeah. Social credit pay raises on check at midnight. Politics on the Fringe in BC tomorrow. Has he got all the bills, all the hydro bills and whatnot? Yeah. Are the old line parties beyond the Fringe in BC? Webster, 9 a.m. precisely.